This is my story of my past life.
The Alabama Millionaire Solution. New doc reveals the hidden truth behind getting rich. They said it was impossible to build wealth in today's economy until this Alabama man quietly cracked the code, and now his story is rewriting the rules of getting rich in America. I learned that truth the hard way, standing in a penthouse overlooking Birmingham's glittering skyline, watching the woman I loved walk away from everything we'd built together. My name is James Cole, and 6 years ago, I was worth exactly $147 and a rusted-out Chevy that wouldn't start on cold mornings. Today, I'm worth $340 million, give or take a few million depending on the market. Before we begin the beautiful story, please subscribe, it's free, and it makes my day 100% better. Also like and comment where you're watching from. I would be glad to know this story goes as far as Canada, all of the United States of America, Australia, Africa, and even the United Kingdom. So let me know where you're watching from on comment section. I pray may the good God Almighty bless and preserve you all and your family. Amen. Let's begin. But here's what they don't tell you in those motivational seminars and get-rich-quick schemes. Wealth doesn't just change your bank account. It changes your soul. And sometimes, by the time you realize what you've lost, the numbers in your account mean absolutely nothing. This is the story of how I got rich. But more importantly, it's the story of what it cost me, and what I had to do to get it all back. The fluorescent lights of the gas and go flickered overhead as I counted out quarters for my third coffee of the night shift. It was 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in March 2018, and Tuscaloosa, Alabama was as quiet as a graveyard. I was 28 years old, working the graveyard shift at a gas station, and I had just been served with eviction papers. "You look like hell, James," said Marcus, my only regular customer at this ungodly hour. He was a truck driver who stopped by every Tuesday on his route from Mobile to Nashville. "Feel like it too," I muttered, sliding his usual black coffee, 2 sugars, and a pack of Marlboros across the counter. Marcus studied me with those knowing eyes that had seen too many miles and too many broken dreams. "What's eating you, son?" I almost didn't answer. Pride has a funny way of keeping your mouth shut even when your world is falling apart. But something about that moment, the empty station, the buzzing lights, the weight of those eviction papers in my back pocket, made me crack. I'm about to be homeless, Marcus. Got 72 hours to come up with $1,200 for back rent, or me and my girl are on the street. "What's her name?" "Nadia. Nadia Williams." Just saying her name made my chest tight. She's been covering for me, working double shifts at the hospital while I'm trying to finish my online business degree. But her car broke down last week, cost us everything we'd saved. Marcus took a long sip of his coffee, and I saw something shift in his expression. "You married?" "Not yet. Can't afford a ring, can't afford a wedding. Can't afford much of anything." The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. "You love her?" "More than anything." "Then listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you." Marcus leaned forward, and his voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "There's a man in Birmingham. Name's Dr. Solomon Rashid. Arab fellow, quiet as a church mouse, but he's got more money than God and twice the secrets. Word is, he's looking for someone." "Looking for someone for what?" "Can't say exactly, but I know 3 men who went to work for him. One of them's retired now, living in a beach house in Florida. Another one bought his mama a mansion in Atlanta. Third one, well, let's just say he's set for life." I felt a prickle of suspicion crawl up my spine. What kind of work are we talking about? Because I'm broke, Marcus, but I'm not desperate enough to. "Nothing illegal," Marcus cut me off. "At least, not technically. Dr. Rashid is a consultant, you might say. He helps people solve problems. Big problems. The kind of problems that regular folk can't fix with regular solutions." "What's the catch?" Marcus smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "The catch is that once you're in, you're in. Dr. Rashid doesn't do casual arrangements. You work for him, you commit. Could be 6 months, could be 6 years. But when it's done, You walk away with enough money to never worry again. I should have asked more questions. I should have demanded details, references, proof that this wasn't some elaborate scam. But when you're staring down homelessness with the woman you love counting on you, logic takes a backseat to desperation. How do I reach him? Marcus pulled out a business card, plain white, no logo, just a phone number in elegant black script. Call this number. Tell them Marcus from the Gulf Coast route sent you. They'll set up a meeting. But James. He fixed me with a hard stare. Don't do this unless you're serious. Dr. Rashid doesn't appreciate time wasters, and he sure as hell doesn't give second chances. I took the card, feeling its weight like it was made of lead instead of paper. One more thing, Marcus said as he headed for the door. Whatever Dr. Rashid asks you to do, whatever he asks you to become, remember who you were before the money. Because that's the one thing money can't buy back. The address led me to a high-rise in downtown Birmingham, all glass and steel reaching toward a pewter sky. The lobby was the kind of place where my worn jeans and faded jacket marked me as distinctly out of place. A security guard eyed me suspiciously until I mentioned Dr. Rashid's name, and then his entire demeanor shifted. 23rd floor, Mr. Cole. You're expected. The elevator was silent except for the soft jazz playing through hidden speakers. I caught my reflection in the polished doors, tired eyes, 2-day stubble, hair that needed cutting 3 weeks ago. I looked exactly like what I was, a broke kid from Alabama with more dreams than dollars. The elevator opened directly into a penthouse office that took my breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Birmingham, and the space was furnished with the kind of understated elegance that screamed serious money. But what caught my attention wasn't the view or the furniture. It was the man standing at the window. Dr. Solomon Rashid was perhaps 60, with silver-threaded hair and the bearing of old-world aristocracy. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my car, and when he turned to face me, his dark eyes seemed to see straight through to my bones. James Cole, he said, his accent carrying hints of Cairo and Oxford. Marcus spoke well of you. He didn't tell me much about you, Dr. Rashid. A slight smile. Please, call me Solomon. And he told you exactly what you needed to know, which is almost nothing. He gestured to a leather chair. Seat. We have much to discuss. I sat, hyper-aware of how out of place I was in this temple of wealth. Marcus tells me you're facing eviction, Solomon continued, settling into the chair across from me. That you're drowning in debt, working a dead-end job, watching your dreams slip away. Is this accurate? Pretty much sums it up. And you have someone you care about. Nadia Williams, yes? A nurse at Tuscaloosa Regional. The fact that he knew her name sent a chill through me. How did you? I make it my business to know everything about people before I meet them, James. It saves time. He poured 2 glasses of amber liquid from a crystal decanter. Nadia is 26 years old, graduated nursing school with honors despite working full-time to put herself through. Her mother died of cancer when she was 19. Father was never in the picture. She's been carrying you financially for the past 8 months while you pursue your degree. I'm going to pay her back, I said defensively. Once I finish school, get a real job. When? Solomon's voice was gentle but cutting. You have 2 years left in your program, James. Your current trajectory puts you in a middle management position by age 35, making perhaps $65,000 a year if you're lucky. By that time, Nadia will have spent the best years of her life struggling, waiting, hoping. Is that the life you want for her? Of course not, but nothing. He slid one of the glasses across the table to me. I'm not here to judge you, James. I'm here to offer you an alternative. What kind of alternative? Solomon took a sip of his drink, considering his words carefully. I run a very specialized consulting firm. We help wealthy individuals solve problems that cannot be solved through conventional means. These problems are always legal, but they require a certain flexibility of approach. You keep saying that, but what does it actually mean? It means I need someone young, intelligent, and hungry. Someone who can learn quickly, adapt rapidly, and most importantly, someone who can be trusted with information that could ruin lives. He leaned forward. I need an apprentice, James. Someone I can mold into the kind of consultant that the wealthiest 1% turn to when they're desperate. And what would I be consulting on? Everything. Hostile takeovers, reputation management, strategic negotiations, wealth preservation, crisis intervention. He paused. I will teach you how to think like the wealthy, act like the powerful, and move through their world as if you were born to it. How much does this pay? For the first 6 months, nothing. You'll live here, in one of my properties. All expenses covered. Food, clothing, education, everything. After 6 months, if you prove yourself capable, you'll begin earning $10,000 per month. After 1 year, $25,000. By the time you've been with me for 3 years, you'll be earning more in a month than most people make in a year. My head was spinning. Why me? There must be hundreds of people better qualified. Qualifications mean nothing in my world, James. I need someone with the right instincts, the right hunger, and most importantly, the right motivation. He fixed me with those penetrating eyes. You want to give Nadia the life she deserves. That makes you teachable. That makes you loyal. That makes you perfect. What's the catch? There's always a catch. Solomon smiled, and for the first time, I saw something almost human in his expression. The catch is that this work will change you. You'll learn secrets that will burden you, witness transactions that will disturb you, and make decisions that will haunt you. You'll move in circles where a single mistake can cost millions, where trust is a commodity more valuable than gold, and where your word is quite literally your bond. He set down his glass. You'll also spend the next 3 years with minimal contact with the outside world, including Nadia. She can know you're working, that you're safe, but nothing about what you do or who you work for. Can you accept that? The question hung in the air like smoke. 3 years away from Nadia. 3 years of secrets and isolation. But also 3 years that would end with enough money to give her everything she'd ever dreamed of. I need to talk to her, I said finally. Of course. You have 48 hours to decide. If you accept, you'll start immediately. Solomon stood, signaling the meeting was over. But James, if you choose this path, there's no turning back. I don't accept resignations, and I don't tolerate failure. Are we clear? Crystal. As I rode the elevator back down, the business card felt like it was burning a hole in my pocket. I had 48 hours to make a decision that would change everything. I just didn't realize how right I was. Nadia was waiting when I got back to our cramped apartment, sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of bills spread out in front of her. She looked up when I walked in, and I saw the exhaustion etched into her beautiful face. Where were you? She asked, not accusingly, just tired. I had a meeting. In Birmingham. I sat down across from her, taking in the woman I loved, her dark curls pulled back in a messy bun, her scrubs still on from a shift, her eyes holding a weariness that no 26-year-old should carry. A meeting about what? So I told her everything. About Marcus, about Solomon Rashid, about the offer that seemed too good to be true. I watched her face as I spoke, seeing hope and fear and suspicion chase each other across her features. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. 3 years, she finally said. 3 years of barely seeing you, barely talking to you. But after that, we'd have everything, Nadia. Everything. I could pay off your student loans, buy us a house, give you the wedding you deserve. I don't care about any of that, James. Her voice was sharp, and I saw tears glittering in her eyes. I care about you. About us. What good is money if we lose each other in the process? We won't lose each other. This is for us, don't you see? So we can finally start our lives instead of just surviving. She reached across the table and took my hands, and I felt the calluses on her palms from too many double shifts, too many years of carrying burdens that should have been shared. Promise me something, she said. Promise me that no matter how much money you make, No matter how much you change, you'll come back to me. The real you. Not some polished version that's forgotten where he came from. I promise. And promise me that if this gets dangerous, if this man asks you to do something that compromises who you are, you'll walk away. Money isn't worth your soul, James. I promise, I said again, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. She nodded slowly, wiping at her eyes. Then do it. Take the job. Give us a chance at something better. She squeezed my hands. But come back to me, James Cole. Come back to me whole. I will, I whispered, pulling her close. I swear I will. That night, we held each other in our tiny apartment, neither of us sleeping, both of us knowing that tomorrow everything would change. I memorized the feeling of her in my arms, the sound of her breathing, the way her heart beat against mine. I wish I'd known that it would be the last time things would ever be that simple between us. The next morning, I called Solomon Rashid and accepted his offer. 24 hours later, I walked into that glass tower in Birmingham with nothing but a duffel bag and a head full of dreams. I left behind the gas station, the cramped apartment, and the life I'd always known. What I didn't leave behind were the promises I'd made. They followed me like shadows, whispering reminders of who I was and who I was supposed to be. For a while, I listened to those whispers. But money has a way of drowning out even the loudest voices from your past. The first thing Solomon did was burn my old life. Not literally, of course, but he might as well have. He took one look at my worn jeans and thrift store jacket and made a phone call. 6 hours later, I was standing in a private tailor's workshop in Mountain Brook, being measured for suits I couldn't even pronounce the names of. Clothing is armor in the world you're entering, Solomon explained as the tailor worked. Dress like you belong, and people will assume you do. The wealthy don't question those who look like them. Over the next week, I received a complete makeover. Haircut at a salon where a trim cost more than I used to make in a day. Shoes handcrafted in Italy. Watches that could have fed a family for a year. Every piece was chosen deliberately, strategically, to transform me from James Cole, broke kid from Tuscaloosa, into someone else entirely. But the physical transformation was nothing compared to what Solomon did to my mind. The truly wealthy don't think like regular people, he told me during one of our daily lessons. We were in his study, surrounded by books on everything from behavioral psychology to international finance. They see opportunities where others see obstacles. They think in decades while others think in days. They understand that money is just a tool, not a goal. Then what is the goal? Power, influence, control. He poured himself coffee from a silver service. Money is how you keep score, but power is how you win the game. He taught me to read financial statements the way most people read newspapers. He taught me body language, negotiation tactics, the subtle art of manipulation disguised as conversation. He introduced me to economists, lawyers, investors, each one a master class in how the wealthy operated. But more than anything, he taught me to see the world differently. Look at that building, he said one afternoon, pointing out the window at a downtown office tower. What do you see? A building. Wrong. You see a tax shelter, a depreciation asset, a vehicle for wealth transfer. You see the stories of everyone who built it, sold it, bought it, and rented space in it. You see the dozens of ways it generates passive income for people who never step foot inside. He turned to me. The wealthy see opportunity in everything, James. Train yourself to see what they see. I called Nadia every Sunday night, exactly at 8 o'clock. The conversations were brief, carefully sanitized of any real details about my work. I could hear the loneliness in her voice, and it gutted me every time. How was your week? She'd ask. Good. Busy. Learning a lot. I couldn't tell her about the private jet flights, the five-star restaurants, the rooms where deals worth millions were made with handshakes and nods. I miss you. I miss you too. But did I? The question started to creep into my thoughts as weeks turned into months. I missed the idea of her, missed the comfort of our old life. But I was becoming someone new, someone who moved in worlds she couldn't even imagine. I hated myself for thinking it, but I couldn't stop. 6 months into my apprenticeship, Solomon decided I was ready for my first real test. There's a man named Richard Beaumont, he explained over breakfast in his penthouse. Old money, shipping family out of Mobile. He's being blackmailed. By who? A former business partner who has evidence of some creative accounting practices. Nothing criminal, but embarrassing enough to damage Beaumont's reputation and trigger some uncomfortable regulatory audits. So what does he want us to do? Solomon smiled. He wants the problem to disappear. Your job is to make that happen. He slid a thick folder across the table. Inside were dossiers, financial records, photographs, everything I needed to know about Richard Beaumont, his blackmailer, and the situation. How am I supposed to make it disappear? I asked, my mouth suddenly dry. That's for you to figure out. But James. His expression turned serious. Whatever you do, it must be legal, it must be permanent, and it must leave no trace back to us or Beaumont. Understand? I spent 3 days studying that folder, analyzing every angle, every weakness, every possibility. The blackmailer was a man named Dennis Kovac, a former CFO who'd been forced out of Beaumont's company after an ethics violation. He was bitter, broke, and desperate, a dangerous combination. The evidence he had was damning. Emails showing Beaumont had shifted profits through offshore subsidiaries to minimize tax obligations. Legal, technically, but the optics were terrible. Beaumont was being groomed for a Senate run, and this would kill his political aspirations before they started. Kovac wanted $5 million for his silence. I could have just advised Beaumont to pay. It would have been simple, clean, and over in a day. But Solomon's words echoed in my mind. Make the problem disappear. Paying Kovac wouldn't make him disappear. It would just make him richer and more dangerous. So I dug deeper. It took me another week, but I found it. Kovac had a gambling problem. Not just casual betting, serious, destructive, the kind that comes with loan sharks and broken kneecaps. He owed money to some very unpleasant people in Atlanta. More importantly, I discovered that Kovac's evidence wasn't as solid as he claimed. The emails existed, but the context was murky. With the right legal pressure and the right narrative, they could be made to look like routine business correspondence. I presented my solution to Solomon. We anonymously pay off Kovac's gambling debts. All of them. About $500,000. Then we have Beaumont's lawyers send Kovac a letter threatening to prosecute him for attempted extortion, with evidence that we fabricated showing the emails are taken out of context. Finally, we have one of your contacts in Atlanta make it known to Kovac that his debts were paid by someone who now owns that debt, someone who would be very unhappy if Kovac made trouble for their investments. Solomon listened, his face unreadable. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Elegant, he finally said. You're not solving the problem by destroying Kovac. You're making him indebted to the very people he's trying to harm. He becomes an asset instead of a threat. Will it work? Only one way to find out. It took 3 weeks to execute, but it worked perfectly. Kovac received payment for his gambling debts from an anonymous source, followed immediately by a legal letter that scared him silent, followed by a quiet conversation with his new benefactors that made it clear his health depended on his discretion. The evidence disappeared. Kovac disappeared. The problem disappeared. Beaumont was grateful enough to wire $250,000 to Solomon's account. Solomon gave me $50,000 of it, more money than I'd ever seen in my life. This is just the beginning, he told me. You have the instinct, James. Now we refine it. That night, I sat in my apartment, no longer cramped, but a luxury space in one of Birmingham's most exclusive buildings, and stared at the check. $50,000 for 3 weeks of work. It was insane. It was intoxicating. I called Nadia, eager to share the news without sharing the details. That's amazing, baby, she said, and I could hear the genuine happiness in her voice. I'm so proud of you. We are going to make it, Nadia. I can feel it. Just a couple more years, and we'll have everything we ever wanted. I don't need everything, she said softly. I just need you. You have me. You'll always have me. But even as I said the words, I felt them ring hollow. Because the truth was, she didn't have me. Not really. I was becoming someone else, someone who solved problems for millionaires, someone who moved in circles where right and wrong were negotiable concepts. I was becoming the kind of person the old James Cole wouldn't have recognized. And the worst part? I was starting to like it. Success breeds success, and in Solomon's world, I was becoming very successful. Over the next 18 months, I handled a dozen more cases, each one more complex than the last. I orchestrated a hostile takeover for a tech CEO in Huntsville, structured a divorce settlement that saved a real estate mogul millions, and even helped a Birmingham banking family navigate a corruption scandal that would have destroyed them. Each case taught me something new about power, money, and the ugly truths that lurk beneath polished surfaces. I learned that the wealthy were often the most desperate, that money magnified problems rather than solved them, and that everyone, absolutely everyone, had secrets they'd paid dearly to protect. My income grew exponentially. After the first year, I was making $30,000 a month. By year 2, it was $100,000. Solomon took me on as a full partner, and suddenly I wasn't just his apprentice. I was a player in my own right. I bought my first car, a Mercedes S-Class that cost more than Nadia and I had earned combined in the previous 5 years. I wore watches that cost more than wedding rings. I ate at restaurants where the wine list had no prices because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford to be there. And slowly, imperceptibly, I stopped being James Cole from Tuscaloosa. The Sunday night calls with Nadia became shorter, more strained. The distance between us wasn't just physical anymore, it was existential. She was still living in our old world, working double shifts to save money, dreaming of a modest house and a simple wedding. I was living in a different universe entirely, one where problems were solved with phone calls and wire transfers, where influence was currency and discretion was gospel. "When are you coming home?" she asked one Sunday night, and I heard the desperation in her voice. "Soon," I lied. "Just a few more months, and then we can start planning everything." It's been 2 years, James. 2 years of barely seeing you, of living separate lives. Sometimes I feel like I don't even know you anymore. You know me, Nadia. I'm the same person I've always been. The silence on the other end of the line said she knew I was lying as much as I did. "Are you?" she finally asked. Because the James the first fell in love with wanted to help people, wanted to make a difference. "What are you doing with this man, James? What kind of work requires you to cut yourself off from everyone you love?" "Important work. Work that's going to set us up for life." "I don't want to be set up for life," she said, and I heard tears in her voice. "I want you. I want us. I want the life we talked about, not some fantasy where we are rich but strangers." "We are not strangers." "Aren't we?" She took a shaky breath. "When was the last time we had a real conversation? When was the last time you told me something true about your day, your work, your life? You're living in a world I can't see, can't touch, can't be part of. And I'm tired, James. I'm so tired of waiting for you to come back to me." "I'll come home next month," I said, making a decision in the moment. "I promise. We'll spend a whole weekend together, just you and me, like old times." "You promise?" "I promise." But when the next month came, I was in New York closing a deal worth $20 million to a hedge fund manager. The month after that, I was in Miami handling a reputation crisis for a pharmaceutical executive. The excuses kept coming, and the promises kept breaking, and the distance kept growing. 3 months before my 3-year commitment was supposed to end, Solomon called me into his office with an unusual request. "There's a situation in Atlanta," he said. "A very wealthy family, old money, facing a hostile takeover of their media empire. They need someone who can navigate corporate warfare while managing the public relations disaster. It's the biggest case I've ever been offered, James. 8 figures for 6 months of work." "When would it start?" "Immediately." I thought about Nadia, about the promises I'd made, about the fact that I was supposed to be done with this life in 3 months. "I'll do it," I said. Solomon smiled. I knew you would. You have the gift, James. You see the game the way I do now. You understand that money isn't the goal, it's just the way we keep score. That night, I called Nadia to tell her I'd need to extend my commitment. She didn't pick up. I called again the next night, and the night after that. Finally, a week later, she answered. I can't do this anymore, James. Her voice was flat, emotionless. I've tried to be patient, tried to understand, tried to believe that you'd come back to me. But you're not coming back, are you? Not really. Nadia, please. You've become exactly what that man wanted you to become. Someone who thinks like them, acts like them, values what they value. You've forgotten who you were, forgotten why you started this in the first place. I did this for us. No, she said quietly. You did this for you. Because you liked it. Because you got addicted to the money, the power, the feeling of being important. I was just the excuse you used to justify it. That's not true. Isn't it? When was the last time you asked about my life, James? When was the last time you asked about my dreams, my hopes, my struggles? You call every Sunday and talk about how busy you are, how important your work is, how soon we'll have everything we've ever wanted. But you never ask what I want anymore. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, to prove her wrong. But I couldn't. Because she was right. I'm done waiting, she said finally. I'm done putting my life on hold for a man who doesn't exist anymore. I loved James Cole from Tuscaloosa. But I don't know who you are now, and I don't think you do either. Nadia, please don't do this. I love you. I'll quit right now. Come home. We can. No, you won't. Because you don't want to. And that's okay, James. You get to choose the life you want. But I get to choose mine too. What are you saying? I'm saying goodbye. Her voice cracked, and I heard the tears she was trying to hide. I'm saying I hope you get everything you're chasing. I'm saying I hope it makes you happy. But I'm also saying that I can't be part of it anymore. Nadia. The line went dead. I called back immediately, but she didn't answer. I called 100 more times over the next week, sent texts, emails, even hired a courier to deliver flowers to her apartment. She never responded. 2 weeks later, I received a letter. It was short, written in her handwriting, and it broke me in ways I didn't know I could break. Dear James, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I've accepted a nursing position in Seattle, as far from Alabama as I could get. I need to start over, build a life that isn't defined by waiting for someone who may never come. I don't hate you. I don't even blame you. You saw an opportunity to escape the life we were trapped in, and you took it. That takes courage. But somewhere along the way, you forgot that the point of escaping wasn't just to leave. It was to arrive somewhere better, together. I hope you find what you're looking for. I hope the money and the success and the power fill whatever hole you've been trying to fill. But more than that, I hope you find yourself again. Because the James the first loved is still in there somewhere, buried under expensive suits and broken promises. I'll always love that James. But I can't wait for him anymore. Goodbye. Nadia. I sat in my luxury apartment, surrounded by all the trappings of success I'd worked so hard to achieve, and I wept. Not the quiet, dignified tears of a man experiencing temporary sadness, but the gut-wrenching sobs of someone who just realized exactly what he'd sacrificed to get everything he thought he wanted. I'd won the game Solomon taught me to play, but in winning, I'd lost the only thing that actually mattered. For 3 weeks after Nadia left, I was useless. I went through the motions of work, attended meetings, closed deals, but my heart wasn't in it. Solomon noticed, of course. He noticed everything. You're distracted, he said one morning over coffee. This situation with the nurse. Her name is Nadia. Is affecting your work. This cannot continue. I know. I stared into my cup, seeing nothing. I just need time to process it. Time is the one commodity we cannot afford to waste. He leaned back in his chair, studying me with those calculating eyes. You're experiencing the first rule of wealth, James. Everything has a price. You paid for your success with your relationship. It's unfortunate, but it's the way of things. Is it? I looked up at him. Is that really the way it has to be? Or is that just the story wealthy people tell themselves to justify the collateral damage they leave behind? Solomon's expression didn't change, but I saw something flicker in his eyes. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. You're angry, he observed. Damn right I'm angry. I followed your rules, did everything you taught me, became exactly what you wanted me to become. And now the woman I love is gone because I couldn't see what I was losing until it was too late. And yet, you're still here. Solomon gestured around his opulent office. You didn't quit. You didn't walk away. You're sitting in my office, angry at the price you paid, but still committed to the path you chose. Do you know what that tells me? What? That deep down, you knew the price before you paid it. You simply chose not to acknowledge it until the bill came due. He poured himself more coffee. The truly wealthy understand this, James. Every choice has a cost. Every success requires a sacrifice. The only question is whether you're willing to pay it. And if I'm not, if I decide the cost is too high, then you walk away. Return to your old life, find Nadia, beg her forgiveness, and spend the rest of your days wondering what might have been. He met my eyes. But you won't. Because you've tasted what it's like to have power, influence, control. And once you've tasted it, you can never go back to being powerless. I wanted to prove him wrong. I wanted to storm out of that office, book a flight to Seattle, and show up at Nadia's door with apologies and promises and proof that I could change. But I didn't. Instead, I threw myself into work with a ferocity that bordered on obsession. If I'd lost Nadia, then by God, I was going to make sure it counted for something. I was going to become so successful, so wealthy, so powerful that the sacrifice would be justified. The Atlanta case consumed the next 6 months. I worked 18-hour days, negotiated deals that would have seemed impossible a year ago, and orchestrated a defense against the hostile takeover that became a case study in corporate warfare. By the time it was over, the family's media empire was not only saved but strengthened, and my fee was $12 million. 5 years after I first walked into Solomon Rashid's office, I stood in my own penthouse overlooking Birmingham, worth $340 million, and I'd never felt more empty in my life. The city glittered below me like scattered diamonds, each light representing lives being lived, dreams being chased, loves being nurtured. And here I was, alone in a glass tower, surrounded by everything money could buy and nothing that actually mattered. My phone buzzed. Another deal, another crisis, another desperate millionaire needing someone to make their problems disappear. I ignored it. Instead, I pulled out the letter Nadia had sent me 5 years ago. I'd read it so many times the paper was soft as cloth, the words burned into my memory. But I read it again anyway, torturing myself with what I'd lost. The truth was, Solomon had been right about one thing. I'd chosen this path knowing the cost. Maybe not consciously, but somewhere deep down, I'd known that you couldn't serve two masters. I couldn't chase wealth with the ruthlessness it required and still hold on to the person I'd been. I'd just been too cowardly to admit it until it was too late. My phone rang. Solomon, there's someone here who wants to meet you, he said without preamble. Come to the office. Who is it? You'll see. 30 minutes later, I walked into Solomon's office and froze. Nadia sat in the leather chair where I'd sat 5 years ago, wearing scrubs from a shift, her hair pulled back, her face older but still achingly beautiful. Next to her sat Solomon, looking oddly satisfied. Hello, James, she said quietly. My throat closed. What are you doing here? I called her, Solomon interjected. Flew her in from Seattle. Paid her quite handsomely for her time, actually. Why? Because you've been useless for 5 years, and I'm tired of it. He stood, walking to the window. You've made me more money than any associate I've ever had. You're brilliant, ruthless when necessary, and completely committed to your work. But you're also miserable, and it's starting to show. What does this have to do with? Everything, Nadia interrupted. She stood, and I saw her hands were shaking. Dr. Rashid contacted me 3 months ago. He told me everything, what you've been doing, how much you've made, how successful you've become. And he asked me a question. What question? He asked if I'd been wrong about you, if maybe you hadn't changed as much as I thought. She took a breath. So I came here to find out. Nadia, I'm so sorry. For everything. For choosing this over us, for breaking my promises, for... Stop. She held up a hand. I didn't come here for apologies. I came here because Dr. Rashid made me an offer. I looked at Solomon, confused. I'm retiring, he said simply. I'm 73 years old, James. I've spent 50 years playing these games, and I'm tired. The business is yours if you want it. All of it. The clients, the reputation, the network, everything. But there's a condition, Nadia added. Dr. Rashid will only transfer the business to you if you can answer one question honestly. What question? Solomon turned from the window, his expression unreadable. Was it worth it? The question hung in the air like smoke. Was it worth it? 5 years of my life, the loss of the woman I loved, the transformation from James Cole into whoever I'd become. Was any of it worth the wealth I'd accumulated? I looked at Nadia, really looked at her, and saw the woman who'd carried me when I had nothing, who'd believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, who'd loved me despite my flaws and failures. And I realized something. Solomon had taught me to see opportunities where others saw obstacles, to think strategically about every situation, to always find the angle that led to success. But he'd never taught me the most important lesson. No, I said quietly. It wasn't worth it. Solomon's eyebrows rose. No. No. I felt something break open inside me, 5 years of pressure releasing all at once. You taught me to win, Solomon. You taught me to be successful, powerful, influential. But you never taught me what to do with it once I had it. You never told me that success without someone to share it with is just expensive loneliness. I turned to Nadia, my voice cracking. I was an idiot. I thought I was building a life for us, but I was really just running away from being the broke kid who couldn't provide for the woman he loved. And in running away from that, I became something worse, someone who had everything except what mattered. Tears streamed down my face, 5 years of repressed emotion finally finding release. You were right about me. I got addicted to it, the money, the power, the feeling of being important. And I used our dreams as an excuse to justify it. I'm so sorry, Nadia. I'm so goddamn sorry. She was crying too now, and I saw Solomon discreetly leave the room, giving us privacy. I don't know if I can forgive you, she said through her tears. You broke my heart, James. You made me feel like I wasn't enough, like our life together wasn't enough. It was always enough. You were always enough. I was just too blind to see it. Then what do you want? Why am I really here? I took a deep breath, knowing this was the most important negotiation of my life, and it had nothing to do with money or deals or corporate warfare. I want a chance to make it right. Not with money, not with apologies, but with action. I stepped closer to her. I want to show you that the James Cole you fell in love with is still here. He's buried under expensive suits and broken promises, like you said, but he's still here. How? Dr. Rashid's offer. I'm going to turn it down. Her eyes widened. What? I'm going to turn it down, walk away from this life, and start over. Not as James Cole the consultant, but as the person I was supposed to become before I got sidetracked by money and power. James, that's crazy. You'd be giving up hundreds of millions. I don't care. And I realized I meant it. You know what I've learned in 5 years of working with the wealthiest people in the country? They're all miserable. Every single one of them. They have everything except what they actually need. Connection, purpose, love. I refuse to become them. But what will you do? I smiled for the first time in what felt like years. Remember what I was studying before all this? Business management? I'm going to use what I've learned, the strategy, the negotiation, the network, but I'm going to use it to help people who actually need it. Small businesses struggling to survive. Entrepreneurs who can't get funding. Communities that need economic development. That's what you always wanted, she whispered, before the money changed everything. The money didn't change me, Nadia. Fear did. Fear of being broke, fear of not being enough, fear of failing you. But I've learned something. Failure isn't being poor. Failure is losing yourself chasing a definition of success that isn't yours. I took her hands, feeling their familiar warmth. I can't promise I'll be perfect. I can't promise I won't struggle or doubt or make mistakes. But I can promise that whatever I do, whoever I become, it'll be authentic. No more hiding, no more secrets, no more choosing money over us. What if it's too late? She asked. What if we've changed too much, grown too far apart? Then we'll figure it out together. Or we won't, and I'll have to accept that some mistakes can't be fixed. I squeezed her hands. But I have to try, Nadia. Because the only thing I've learned in 5 years of success is that none of it means anything without you. 3 months later, I stood in a small office in Tuscaloosa, looking at the sign on the door, Cole Consulting, Strategic Solutions for Small Business. It wasn't a glass tower. It didn't have floor-to-ceiling windows or leather furniture or a view of the city. But it was mine, built not on secrecy and manipulation, but on helping people build something real. Nadia walked in carrying coffee, and I still couldn't believe she'd given me another chance. Your 9 o'clock is here, she said. Family restaurant, struggling with debt, needs help restructuring. Thanks. I took the coffee, letting our fingers touch. You staying? I have a shift at the hospital, but I'll be home for dinner. She paused at the door. Real dinner. At our apartment. Together. I'll be there. After she left, I sat with my first client, a middle-aged woman named Maria who'd poured her life savings into a restaurant that was failing. She had calloused hands, tired eyes, and the same desperate hope I'd seen in Nadia's face years ago. I could have charged her thousands. With my reputation and skills, I could have commanded fees that would have made her situation worse. Instead, I spent 3 hours with her, mapping out a realistic plan for restructuring her debt, negotiating with creditors, and implementing operational changes that would give her a fighting chance. My fee was $500, enough to keep my lights on, not enough to exploit her desperation. As she left, grateful and hopeful, I felt something I hadn't felt in 5 years: purpose. That evening, Nadia and I sat on our apartment balcony, modest, affordable, nothing like the luxury I'd grown accustomed to, and watched the sun set over Tuscaloosa. Do you miss it? She asked. The money, the power, the life you had. I thought about it honestly. Did I miss the private jets and 5-star restaurants? The feeling of being able to solve any problem with a phone call and a wire transfer? The intoxicating rush of closing multimillion-dollar deals? Sometimes, I admitted. But you know what I don't miss? The loneliness, the emptiness, the feeling that I'd sold my soul for a bank balance. What did Dr. Rashid say when you turned down his offer? I smiled, remembering that conversation. Solomon had been surprisingly philosophical about my decision. He said he'd known from the beginning that I wouldn't take it. That the whole thing, bringing you here, making the offer, was a test to see if I'd learned the most important lesson. Which was, that success isn't about how much you accumulate. It's about knowing what's worth keeping and what's worth letting go. I took her hand. He told me he'd made the same mistake I did, years ago. Lost someone he loved chasing wealth and power. By the time he realized what he'd done, it was too late to get them back. That's sad. It is. But he said seeing me walk away gave him hope that maybe the next generation would be smarter than his was. We sat in comfortable silence, and I marveled at how different this moment felt from all those nights alone in my penthouse. This, This simple moment of quiet connection was worth more than every dollar I'd ever made. I'm proud of you, Nadia said softly, for having the courage to start over, to choose differently. I should have chosen differently 5 years ago. Maybe. She leaned against me. Or maybe you needed to go through all of that to understand what really matters. Maybe we both did. The true solution. 2 years later, Cole Consulting had grown into something I never expected. Word spread about the consultant who charged fair prices and actually cared about his client's success. Small businesses, non-profits, community organizations, they all found their way to my door. I wasn't making $340 million anymore. I was making enough to live comfortably, save for the future, and do work that mattered. Nadia and I got married in a simple ceremony surrounded by family and friends. No ice sculptures, no celebrity guests, no expense spared, just love and commitment and the promise to choose each other every single day. One afternoon, I received an unexpected visitor, Solomon Rashid. He looked older, more fragile, but his eyes still held that sharp intelligence. I wanted to see what you'd built, he said, looking around my modest office. It's not much compared to. It's everything I never had the courage to build. He sat down, and I saw something in his expression I'd never seen before, regret. You asked me once if the price of success was always this high. I told you it was the way of things. I was wrong. Solomon. Let me finish. He pulled out a folder, setting it on my desk. This is the paperwork for a foundation I'm establishing. $1 billion dedicated to supporting small businesses and entrepreneurs who can't access traditional funding. I want you to run it. I stared at him, speechless. Before you refuse, he continued, understand that this isn't about returning to the old life. The foundation will pay you a reasonable salary, good, but not obscene. You'll help people, make a real difference, and never have to compromise your values. It's the work you're already doing, just with more resources. Why me? Because you learned what took me 50 years to understand. True wealth isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in lives touched, relationships nurtured, purpose fulfilled. He stood to leave. You were my greatest success, James, not because of the money you made me, but because you had the wisdom to walk away before it destroyed you. After he left, I showed Nadia the folder. We sat together, reading through the foundation's mission, the structure, the possibilities. What do you think? I asked. I think, she said slowly, that this is what you were meant to do all along. Help people. Make a difference. Use everything you learned in that world to help people escape the traps you almost fell into. So I accepted. The Alabama Millionaire Solution, as the media eventually called it, became a blueprint for others. My story, the broke kid who became wealthy, lost everything that mattered, and found redemption in service, inspired dozens of others to reconsider their own definitions of success. I never became as wealthy as I could have. I never built an empire or made Forbes list or achieved the kind of financial success that Solomon had envisioned for me. But I did something better. I came home. To myself, to Nadia, to the values that defined me before money clouded my vision. I learned that the hidden truth behind getting rich isn't about sacrifice or ruthlessness or abandoning who you are. It's about knowing what you're willing to pay, and more importantly, what you refuse to sacrifice. Because in the end, the only success that matters is the kind you can live with when you look in the mirror. The only wealth worth having is the kind that doesn't require you to lose yourself to gain it. And the only solution to life's problems, whether you're broke in Tuscaloosa or wealthy in Birmingham, is remembering that money is just a tool, not a destination. The real treasure is knowing when you have enough, and having the courage to stop chasing more. I learned that lesson the hard way, paid for it with years of my life and the temporary loss of the woman I loved. But in learning it, I found something more valuable than all of Solomon's millions. I found my way back home. The true Alabama Millionaire Solution isn't a secret strategy or hidden truth about wealth accumulation. It's the wisdom to know that success without meaning is just expensive emptiness, and the courage to choose purpose over profit, connection over accumulation, and love over everything else. Thanks for taking your precious time watching. Please, before you leave, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment where you are watching from.